So Dillon Gabriel is starting this weekend for the Cleveland Browns. Big news, right? Except it's not really about Dillon Gabriel at all. This whole thing is about Shedeur Sanders, and if you can't see that, you haven't been paying attention to what's actually happening in Cleveland. Let me break down what's really going on here, because the surface story and the actual story are two completely different things. Joe Flacco is done. Let's just start there. The man who was supposed to steady the ship has been an absolute train wreck. We're talking multiple interceptions, fumbles, a quarterback rating that's practically underground. This isn't the Joe Cool who won a Super Bowl anymore. This is a guy whose own kids were caught on camera calling him trash. Think about that for a second. Your own children are roasting your game on video that goes viral. That's not just embarrassing. That's a sign that everyone, including your family, knows you don't have it anymore. Kevin Stefanski kept running Flacco out there anyway, week after week, turnover after turnover. The Browns beat the Packers with Micah Parsons on defense, which should have been momentum, should have been something to build on. Instead, Stefanski stuck with the aging veteran until Detroit came to town and absolutely demolished them on national television. That's when everything changed. That's when ownership stepped in. Jimmy Haslam doesn't wait around. He's not Jerry Jones, but he wants to be. He's a billionaire who's desperate for his team to matter, desperate for headlines, desperate for something, anything that makes the Cleveland Browns relevant again. And you know what makes a team relevant in today's NFL? Star power, brand recognition, buzz. Jimmy Haslam had dinner with Dion and Shedeur before the draft. He didn't see just another quarterback prospect. He saw a marketing phenomenon waiting to happen. That's why Shedeur Sanders was drafted, not in the first round, not in the second, but in the 5th round at 144th overall. And let me tell you something, that pick had nothing to do with traditional scouting and everything to do with ownership wanting a piece of the Sanders brand. Haslam wanted Shedeur on this roster, and now that he's here, Haslam is not about to let his investment collect dust on the bench while the team falls apart. So Dillon Gabriel gets the start. Fine. He's got skills. He's been compared to Tua Tagovailoa with that left-handed delivery, quick release, accurate passes. On paper, Gabriel looks like someone who could manage games and keep the offense functional, but let's be real. Nobody in Cleveland is excited about game management right now. Nobody's buying tickets to watch a rookie try to go 3 and out efficiently. The fans want electricity. They want someone who changes the entire energy of the franchise. And that someone is sitting 3rd on the depth chart. Here's what makes this situation so fascinating and so uncomfortable for everyone involved. Stefanski never wanted Shedeur Sanders. All the whispers coming out of Berea suggests the head coach didn't sign off on that pick. He wanted veterans, stability, predictability. In his mind, Shedeur represents chaos, a media circus, national attention, and pressure he doesn't want to deal with. When reporters asked him this week what Gabriel's promotion means for Shedeur, Stefanski's response was ice cold. That's not my concern right now. That's not coach speak. That's personal. That's a guy who feels like ownership forced a player on him, and now he's doing everything he can to maintain control of his own team. But here's the problem. Stefanski's stubbornness might cost him his job. He's already on the hot seat. The fan base is restless. The locker room is watching. And every week he keeps Shedeur Sanders buried on the depth chart while the offense sputters. He's giving Haslam more ammunition to make a change. Because let's talk about the locker room for a minute. This is where the story gets really interesting. In the preseason, every time Shedeur touched the football, something happened. The energy on that sideline changed completely. Jerry Jeudy was jumping out of his cleats. David Njoku was grinning ear to ear. Young guys were buzzing like they were watching something special unfold. These weren't forced celebrations or fake hype. This was genuine belief. And then there's Myles Garrett, the face of the franchise. The one player whose opinion carries more weight than anyone else in that building. Garrett is known for being stone-faced, serious, locked in. But with Shedeur, he was laughing, joking around, fist-bumping on the sideline. That's not normal behavior from Myles Garrett. That's a stamp of approval. When your defensive leader, a guy who's seen countless quarterbacks cycle through Cleveland, openly connects with a third-string rookie, that tells you something real is happening. Compare that to the vibe around Dillon Gabriel. Sure, his teammates respect him. They'll clap when he makes a good throw, but it's polite respect respect, professional courtesy. With Shedeur, the entire mood shifts. He lights up the room. Players gravitate toward him in the facility. Veterans are pulling him aside, talking ball, joking around like he's already one of the leaders. That kind of energy is rare, and it matters more than people realize. In the NFL, locker rooms decide fates, not depth charts, not coaching staffs, locker rooms. And in Cleveland, the locker room has already chosen Shedeur Sanders as their guy. They haven't said it publicly, but you can see it in how they react to him, how they talk about him, how the entire team dynamic changes when he's around. Now let's talk about why this goes beyond football. Shedeur Sanders hasn't started a single game in the NFL, and his jersey is already one of the top sellers in the league. Not just in Cleveland, nationwide. Fans who don't even follow the Browns are buying number 12 because they want a piece of the Sanders legacy. That's not normal. That's star power. That's the kind of marketability franchises dream about. Jimmy Haslam knows exactly what he has. Every jersey sold, every social media clip that goes viral, every headline with Shedeur's name in it. That's revenue. That's attention. That's the Cleveland Browns mattering in conversations across the country. Right now, they're an afterthought. They're a punchline. But the moment Shedeur Sanders steps on that field as the starter, everything changes. National broadcasts open with his name. Talk shows debate him daily. The Browns become must-watch television. This is bigger than wins and losses. This is about business. And when your most popular, most marketable player is sitting on the bench while empty seats pile up in the stadium, you're not just wasting talent, you're wasting opportunity. Jimmy Haslam is not the type of owner to waste opportunity. Let's talk about Shedeur's background for a minute, because this matters. This isn't some kid who got thrust into the spotlight and doesn't know how to handle it. Shedeur Sanders has been trained for this moment his entire life. His father is Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes in history, a man who lived in the spotlight across 2 professional sports, a personality who commanded attention everywhere he went. Deion didn't just teach Shedeur how to throw a football, he taught him how to handle pressure, how to deal with cameras, how to thrive when everyone's watching. Stories from the Sanders family make this clear. Deion told Shedeur from a young age, "Wherever we go, the cameras follow, so be ready." That wasn't advice, that was training. Shedeur wasn't raised to be a backup quarterback. He was groomed to be a franchise quarterback. Look at his track record. At Jackson State, he didn't just play well, he transformed the entire program. He brought national attention to a school that had been overlooked for decades. He won championships. He became the face of something bigger than football. Then came Colorado. A program that had 1 winning season in 17 years suddenly became must-see TV. Shedeur walked into a disaster and turned it into a movement. Yes, he had Travis Hunter. Yes, Deion brought in transfers. But Shedeur was the face. He was the leader. He was the one carrying the weight when the pressure became unbearable. And time after time, he delivered. That's what separates him from Dillon Gabriel, from Joe Flacco, from anyone else in that quarterback room. Shedeur isn't walking into something unfamiliar. He's walking into exactly the stage he was built for. There's no learning curve here, no adjustment period. This is what he's been preparing for his entire life. So what happens next? Dillon Gabriel starts this weekend. Maybe he plays well, maybe he struggles. Either way, the outcome leads to the same place. If Gabriel falters, if he throws a couple of bad interceptions, if the offense looks stagnant, the calls for Shedeur will be deafening. Cleveland fans aren't known for patience, and with the most talked about quarterback in the country sitting right there on the bench, the pressure will become unbearable. Stefanski can ignore it for a week, maybe 2, but eventually even he won't be able to drown out the noise. But even if Gabriel plays well, even if he goes 3-2 or 4-3, it won't matter. Average isn't enough. Not when you have a player who can change the entire narrative of your franchise. When Gabriel throws a touchdown, it's a stat line. When Shedeur throws a touchdown, it's a headline. ESPN breaks it down. Social media explodes. Jersey sales spike. The Browns go from local coverage to national relevance in an instant. That's the difference. And Jimmy Haslam understands that difference better than anyone. He didn't draft Shedeur Sanders to let him sit. He drafted him to eventually become the face of this franchise. The plan is obvious. Gabriel gets his shot, proves what he can do, and when the moment is right, whether that's because Gabriel struggles or because Haslam simply decides it's time, Shedeur takes over. And when that happens, it won't be a quiet transition. It'll be an event. Kevin Stefanski can resist all he wants. He can talk about competition and earned opportunities, but the reality is simple. Ownership wants Shedeur. The locker room wants wants Shedeur. The fans want Shedeur. And in the NFL, when those three forces align, coaches don't get to stand in the way. Stefanski's already on thin ice. Every week he delays the inevitable. He's making his own situation worse. There's also this uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Dillon Gabriel is a placeholder. He's not the future. He's not the answer. He's the warm-up act. The organization knows it. The players know it. Even Gabriel probably knows it deep down. He'll get his chance, and maybe he'll surprise people. But this story doesn't end with Dillon Gabriel leading the Browns to glory. This story ends with Shedeur Sanders becoming the face of the franchise. You can't keep the most famous third-string quarterback in NFL history on the bench forever. Eventually, the hype becomes demand. The demand becomes pressure, and the pressure becomes action. Right now, we're in the hype phase. Shedeur is trending without playing. His name dominates conversations, but soon, that hype will transform into something more forceful. Fans will demand to see him. Media will pressure the coaching staff, and ownership will stop asking politely and start making decisions. That's the trajectory we're on. Dillon Gabriel might buy Stefanski a few weeks. Joe Flacco is completely out of the picture, but the clock is ticking, and everyone knows where this is headed. Shedeur Sanders isn't just the future. He's the present waiting to happen, and when he finally takes that field, when he finally gets his shot, it won't just be another quarterback change. It'll be the moment the Cleveland Browns go from forgotten to unforgettable, because that's what Shedeur brings. Not just talent, not just potential, but belief. The kind of belief that transforms franchises. The kind of belief that makes players fight harder, fans show up louder, and organizations matter again. Cleveland hasn't had that in decades. They've had good players, solid seasons, moments of hope, but they haven't had a true star, a personality big enough to change the entire conversation around the team. Shedeur Sanders is that star, and keeping him on the bench isn't just bad football strategy. It's a waste of what could be the most important moment in Browns history since they came back as a franchise. The pieces are all in place. The talent is there. The buzz is real. The only question left is when, not if. Dillon Gabriel has the keys this weekend. He'll walk out onto that field with the chance to prove himself. But no matter what happens, his time is temporary. The story isn't about him. It never was. From the moment Shedeur Sanders was drafted, from the moment Jimmy Haslam sat down with Deion, from the moment that locker room started rallying around a third-string quarterback, this was always heading in one direction. The Shedeur Sanders era in Cleveland is coming. You can feel it building. You can see it in the way players react to him. You can hear it in the way fans talk about him. You can sense it in the way ownership is positioning everything. And when it finally arrives, when Shedeur finally takes over, it won't just change the Browns. It'll change the entire NFL landscape, because you'll have the son of one of the greatest athletes in history stepping into the spotlight his father prepared him for, playing for a franchise desperate for redemption in a city starving for a hero. That's the story. That's what's actually happening in Cleveland. Dillon Gabriel is just the opening chapter. Joe Flacco is already finished. Kevin Stefanski is fighting a losing battle, and Jimmy Haslam is orchestrating the inevitable. The Browns aren't just changing quarterbacks. They're building towards something bigger, something that could define this franchise for the next decade. So watch Dillon Gabriel this weekend. See what he can do. But don't get too comfortable. Don't start printing Gabriel jerseys or planning parades, because this is all leading somewhere, and that somewhere has a name: Shedeur Sanders. The most famous third-string quarterback in NFL history won't stay third string for long. The players know it. The fans know it. Ownership knows it. And soon the entire NFL world will watch it unfold. Cleveland is on the verge of something. Whether it's glory or disaster remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the story everyone's waiting for, the moment that could change everything, that's coming. And it's coming sooner than Kevin Stefanski wants to admit. The Shedeur Sanders era isn't a distant possibility. It's the inevitable conclusion to a situation that's been building since draft day. And when it finally happens, when that moment arrives and Shedeur steps onto the field as the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback, remember this: you heard it coming, you saw the signs, you watched the pieces fall into place, and you knew, just like everyone else knew, that this was always where the story was headed. The only question was when, and that when is closer than anyone wants to admit.